Chapter 1. The blood on my sleeve is not mine. That is the first thing I notice when Knox Ransom laughs. He stands across the ring from me, broad and gold-crowned, his western wolves arranged behind the barrier like a wall of iron and teeth. The royal court of Mornvale surrounds us in tears, silent now in a way that feels heavier than noise. Sterling Hawthorne stands at the far edge of the barrier, his jaw locked, his hands pressed flat against the ancient boundary rope that the law says he cannot cross. His eyes are on me, only me, and the look in them is the kind that lives in a person long after the moment that made it. Knox rolls his shoulders and grins with every tooth he owns. He thinks I am shaking from fear. I let him think that. My name is Briar Whitlock. I am a rejected Omega, and 3 weeks ago, I had never held a blade inside a royal duel ring. That is what this court believed. That is what I needed them to believe. The lie kept me soft in their eyes. The lie kept me breathing. But the truth my mother drilled into the bones of my hands before she disappeared, is pressing through my skin right now like heat through thin cloth. Knox circles left. I track him without moving my feet. The crowd murmurs. A woman near the front covers her mouth. I catch Elder Hollis Vane at the upper tier leaning toward the man beside him, whispering something behind 2 fingers with the casual comfort of someone who already knows the ending. He does not know my ending. Nobody in this room does. I was not supposed to be here. Not in this ring, not in this keep, not standing inside the greatest political crisis Mornvale has seen in 40 years. 3 weeks ago, I was pouring wine at a court dinner and trying not to exist too loudly. I was the Omega nobody remembered when they left the room. My scent is rainwater and pear blossom and old paper, the kind of scent that court-trained alphas described as decorative. Something to place near a window. Something pleasant and forgettable. That was the whole point. I was 11 years old the first time my mother pressed a short blade into my hands and said, "Briar, the moment the world knows what you can do, they will stop seeing who you are." She said it the way people say things they have already lived through. Her voice did not waver. Her hands were steady. She had silver scars on both wrists from royal service, and she smiled so rarely that when she did, I memorized it. She taught me everything. Footwork, breathing, how to read an opponent's weight shift before the strike comes, how to lose on purpose in a way that looks like clumsiness, how to stand in a room full of people who underestimate you and give them no reason to stop. Then she vanished. The court said she fled because she was a coward. I said nothing because I was 7, and grief in a child looks exactly like obedience if you are not paying attention. I carried her lessons quietly for years. I let people see what they expected. I dropped things on cue. I spoke softly. I kept my calluses hidden and my balance deliberate and my reflex buried so deep that only silence could find it. I survived Mornvale by becoming invisible. Then Alpha King Sterling Hawthorne chose me as his treaty consort, and invisibility stopped being an option. Knox faints right. My body reads it before my mind finishes the thought. I shift my weight back and the movement is small, controlled, invisible to anyone not watching my feet. Knox watches my face. That is his first mistake. His second mistake was coming here at all. His third, the worst one, is what he said about the border villages 2 days ago. He did not just insult me. He named children. He described specific families by their settlement markers and told the court what his soldiers would do if his challenge was refused. He smiled while he said it. He said mercy was a luxury for kingdoms that could afford weakness. I am not here for pride. I am not here for Sterling's crown or the court's opinion or to prove something to people who never saw me anyway. I am here because 34 families sleep in those villages and Knox Ransom picked them specifically because he knew I would care and Sterling would notice and the law would trap them both inside that caring like a net. He miscalculated one thing. He did not account for me. The ringmaster raises his staff. The final signal. Knox rolls his neck and the crowd pulls in one long breath. Sterling's hand presses harder against the barrier rope. His knuckles go pale. He mouths something. 2 words. I read them across the distance between us and the warmth that moves through my chest is almost unbearable. Come back. I hold his gaze for exactly 1 second. Long enough to mean something. Short enough to keep my focus. Then I turn back to Knox Ransom. 3 weeks ago I was invisible and safe and completely alone. Then Sterling Hawthorne asked me if I had eaten, and the wall I had spent my entire life building inside myself cracked straight down the middle. But that is a different story. This one starts with blood on my sleeve and a man who thinks he has already won. He has not won. He does not know what my hands remember. The staff drops. Knox charges. Chapter 2. The summons arrives before sunrise. A court page slides the sealed letter under my door without knocking. I am already awake, sitting on the edge of my narrow cot in the servants' wing of the outer keep, watching the sky outside my single window turn from black to gray. I have not slept. I stopped sleeping well 3 years ago, and I have never found a remedy that worked better than just accepting it. The wax seal is gold, the royal insignia of Mornvale. I stare at it for a long moment before I break it. The language inside is formal and brief. Alpha King Sterling Hawthorne has selected Briar Whitlock, Omega of no declared house, as treaty consort under the Mornvale Accord. Presence required in the royal hall at the first bell of morning. Formal dress. No delays. I read it twice. Then I set it down on my cot and press both palms flat against my thighs and breathe the way my mother taught me. Slow. Even. In through the nose, out through the mouth, until the body stops making decisions the mind has not approved. Treaty consorts are chosen from noble houses. Everyone in Mornvale knows that. They are chosen for political weight, bloodline connection, territorial advantage. They are not chosen from the servants' wing. They are not chosen from rejected Omegas with no declared house and a scent that court advisors once described in an official report as atmospherically pleasant but politically negligible. Something is wrong. I dress carefully. I choose the gray coat over the brown because gray disappears better in a crowded room. I keep my sleeves long. I lace my boots tight enough that my footing will be solid without looking deliberate. I practice my expression in the small, scratched mirror above my wash basin until it settles into something that reads as nervous and uncertain and completely overwhelmed. It is not hard to produce. Some of it is real. The royal hall is full when I enter. Nobles arranged in their tiers, advisors in their formal rows, guards stationed at intervals with the practiced stillness of people who have learned to look like furniture. The ceiling vaults upward in arched glass panels that flood the room with cold morning light. Everything in here is designed to make a person feel small. I keep my eyes slightly down. I count the exits. 3 visible, 1 behind the eastern tapestry that only the staff use. For guards at the main doors, 2 flanking the royal platform, 1 at each gallery entrance. The distances between them are not consistent. The gap near the tapestry is 11 feet wider than it should be. I file that away and keep walking. The whispers start before I reach the center aisle. They are not quiet about it. The court of Mornvale has never valued discretion over opinion. I hear rejected twice and no house, and Sterling must have lost his mind before I have taken 20 steps. A woman in silk near the second tier says something that ends in charity case, and the man beside her laughs in the particular way that means he agrees but wants it known that the joke was hers. I keep my face soft. I let my shoulders curve slightly inward. I look, to anyone watching, like a man who wishes he were somewhere else. I do wish that, but not for the reasons they assume. Sterling Hawthorne is standing at the far end of the hall beneath the royal crest when I finally let myself look at him. I have seen him before. Everyone in Mornvale has seen him before. His image is on the copper seal, on the ceremonial banners, on the painted panels above the east gate. I thought I understood what he looked like. I was wrong. The paintings do not include his scent. It reaches me before he turns, before he speaks, before I am anywhere near close enough for it to matter by any logical standard. Warm amber and pine ash and something underneath both of those things that I have no clean word for. It is the smell of a storm that has already passed. The smell of a room that was recently full of fire and is now just warm. It moves through me with a directness that is almost rude, and my Omega instincts respond to it the way a compass responds to north, without asking permission, without consulting the rest of me, simply and immediately and completely. I stop walking. I make myself start again. Sterling turns when I am 12 feet away. His eyes find me with a precision that tells me he already knew exactly where I was in the room. They are dark gray, his eyes, the kind of gray that is almost blue depending on the light. There is a silver scar that crosses the left side of his throat, thin and angled, old enough that the skin around it has settled into acceptance. He is broader than the paintings suggest. Quieter. The room has gone still in the particular way rooms go still when the person with the most power in them stops moving. He looks at me for a moment with an expression I cannot categorize. Not contempt. Not pity. Not the measuring look that alphas usually use on omegas they are assessing for value. Something else. Something more careful than any of those things. He says, "Have you eaten this morning?" The question hits me somewhere completely unguarded. I have prepared, in the walk across the keep and the walk down the aisle, for a dozen different opening statements. Political language, treaty references, a public declaration with legal witnesses, some form of formal ownership framing dressed in polite words. I have prepared my face and my posture and my breathing for all of those things. I have not prepared for that question. My mouth opens, closes. I hear a stifled laugh from somewhere in the second tier. No, I say finally. My voice comes out steadier than I expect. Sterling nods once, as if that answer matters to him in a way that is completely disconnected from politics or treaties or the watching court. He gestures to a page at the side of the platform. The page disappears immediately. Sterling says, "That will be corrected." I stare at him. He stares back without aggression, without calculation, without the particular gleam that alphas get when they want something from an omega and are deciding how to take it. The ceremony begins around us. Words are spoken. Legal witnesses step forward. I move through it with the trained compliance of someone who has spent years being managed by other people's decisions. But underneath all of it, underneath every performed gesture and lowered gaze, one thought is circling. He noticed my hands when I reached for the ceremonial blade. I felt his attention drop there and stay there for exactly 2 seconds too long. When I set the blade down, I made sure it looked accidental. Fingers slipping. Poor grip. The blade tilted and fell, and the nobles laughed, and I bent to pick it up with the fumbling uncertainty of someone who has never held one. Sterling reached the blade before I did. He placed it back in my hands. Gently, without comment. But his fingers lingered at my wrist for half a second, and his eyes had shifted into something I did not recognize until I was walking back to my quarters 3 hours later. He had watched me drop that blade, and he did not believe it for a single second. Chapter 3. Someone has moved the furniture in my assigned chamber. I notice it the morning after the ceremony. The writing desk, which was positioned against the north wall when I arrived, is now angled toward the door. The chair behind it faces inward instead of toward the window. Small changes. The kind a person makes when they want clear sightlines to an entrance without making it obvious they want sightlines to an entrance. I stand in the doorway for a moment and breathe. Then I move the desk back. Not because I need the north wall. Because if someone is watching my room, and I have 3 separate reasons to believe someone is, then letting them see me notice their adjustments is worse than letting them believe their adjustments worked. My mother's first lesson was never let them know you know. I have been in Mornvale Keep for 11 days. In those 11 days, I have attended 4 court functions, 2 diplomatic dinners, and 1 formal introduction ceremony where Elder Hollis Vane suggested to Sterling, in front of 14 witnesses, that treaty consorts from houses of no standing should be seated behind the curtain partition during foreign visits so as not to create an impression of political weakness. Sterling said, "Breyer sits beside me." For words, flat and final as a door closing. Hollis smoothed his expression into something gracious and did not argue. But I watched his hands, and his hands told a different story. That was 6 days ago. Hollis has not spoken to me directly since. But I have seen him speak to 3 separate members of the court who have each, within 24 hours of those conversations, found a reason to be in whatever corridor I am walking through. I am being evaluated. I have been evaluated before. The difference this time is that the evaluation does not feel like curiosity. It feels like preparation. The court's mockery is a separate thing and a louder one. I have grown skilled at existing inside it without letting it touch anything real. Lady Corin Ashby told a dinner table of 16 people that Sterling had clearly confused sentiment with strategy. She said rejected omegas made better decorations than alliances and then looked directly at me to measure my reaction. I smiled and reached for my wine. She seemed disappointed. Commander Arden Flint is harder to manage. He is not cruel. That is the problem. He is watchful in the specific way that trained soldiers are watchful, Not hostile, not friendly, just recording. He catalogs. Every time I enter a room he is already in, I feel his attention move across me like a hand checking for loose threads. 3 days ago I was walking the inner courtyard after dark because I do not sleep and the night air was cleaner than the corridor air and I needed to think without walls close by. I took the route along the east garden wall, keeping to the shadow line, moving without sound out of pure habit. Arden was standing at the end of the garden path. He said, "You got lost." It was not a question. His voice had the particular flat quality of someone offering a conclusion they already know is incorrect. I said, "I did. This keep is very large." He looked at me for a long moment in the dark, not suspecting exactly. More like someone running a calculation and finding the numbers slightly off but not yet sure where the error is. "The servants' entrance is north," he said. "Thank you," I said, and turned north. I did not look back, but I heard him stand there for another 10 seconds before his boots moved away. What Arden did not see, because I was already past the garden gate, was that my original route would have taken me directly past the council anteroom, where a light had been burning since the second night bell. The same light, the same window, 3 nights in a row. Council sessions do not run past the first bell. Whatever burns in that room after dark is not official business. I found the coin on the 5th night. I was not searching for it. I was passing the council table on my way to the morning water service when I saw something catch the early light beneath the far edge of the table. Round and copper bright, but with an engraving I did not recognize immediately. I palmed it without pausing, kept walking, made it to the outer corridor before I opened my hand and looked at it properly. It was Western currency, Knox Ransom's mint. A border province denomination stamped with the Western wolf crest on one face and a number I did not understand on the other. Western coins do not fall under Mornvale council tables by accident. I held it for a long time in my closed fist, standing in the corridor with morning light coming through the high window and the distant sounds of the keep beginning its day, and I thought about my mother. I thought about the way she taught me to identify foreign military currency by weight and engraving. I thought about the specific lesson she gave me on why border province coins sometimes carried coded numbers inside their mint marks. I turned the coin over and looked at the number again. It was not a denomination. It was a date, 11 days from when I found it. That night, I pressed my ear to the wall of the corridor that shared a foundation with the council anteroom and I waited. 2 voices. One I recognized as Hollis Vane. The other I did not. But I caught 2 words before a door somewhere deeper in the room opened and swallowed the rest of the conversation. "Knox is coming." I stood in that corridor for a long time after the voices went quiet. I thought about 34 families in border settlements who wake up every morning inside Sterling Hawthorne's protection and do not know that protection is being measured against a clock. I thought about Arden Flint finding me in the garden and telling me north was the servants' entrance. I thought about the way Sterling's eyes had stayed on my wrist during the ceremony. I went back to my chamber and I moved the desk to the north wall. Chapter 4. Sterling finds me in the rain. I am standing in the inner courtyard near the stone bench by the dormant fountain, and I am not hiding exactly, but I chose this spot because it has 3 walls close and a clear view of every approach and the sound of rain on the old stone drowns out footsteps. I come here when the corridor walls press too close. When the court's noise accumulates past the point I can manage with breathing alone. I do not hear him approach. That bothers me more than I show. He stops at the edge of the covered archway where the rain cannot reach him, and he watches me stand in it for a moment before he says, "You don't have to stay out there." "I know," I say. I stay. He steps out of the archway and into the rain and comes to stand beside me at the fountain's edge. He does not ask again. He does not suggest I am being strange or dramatic or romantically difficult. He simply stands there with me and lets the rain do what rain does. His scent changes in the water. The pine ash deepens. The amber goes warmer, somehow the way heat rises under pressure. My omega instincts register the shift before my mind does, and the reaction that moves through me is so immediate and so specific that I have to reset my breathing from the beginning. He is not doing it on purpose. That is the part one cannot square. I have been close to alphas before, and they are always doing something on purpose. Projecting dominance, establishing comfort, signaling availability, performing patience. Sterling is simply standing beside me in the rain, present in a way that has no performance in it. That makes him more dangerous than all of them put together. You stopped the council from assigning me the East Corridor Chamber. I say. The East Corridor Chamber doesn't have a window. A lot of treaty consorts have lived without windows. He turns his head and looks at me with something quiet moving across his face. I know, he says. I changed that too when I could. I don't answer. The rain fills the silence between us and I let it. Sterling is not what the court made him. The court made him into a war figure. Hard choices, harder consequences. A king who ruled by the authority of outcomes rather than the warmth of his manner. And that version exists. I have seen it in council chambers and at the boundary negotiation table and in the way Arden Flint's whole posture straightens when Sterling enters a room. That version is real. But there is another version that the court does not know what to do with. The version that picks up a ceremonial blade and places it back in an Omega's hands without comment. The version that stands in rain because an Omega he barely knows is standing in it. The version that asks about breakfast with the same weight that other alphas use for territory demands. I do not know what to do with it either. You watched my wrist, I say. My voice is flat. I am not asking. A beat. Yes. During the ceremony. Yes. Why? He does not answer immediately, and I have been around enough powerful people to know that the pause is not evasion. He is selecting honest words, which is different. Because you dropped that blade the way someone drops something they are choosing to drop, he says. Not the way someone drops something by accident. The rain runs down the back of my neck and I keep my face forward and I breathe. That's a significant accusation, I say. It wasn't an accusation. His voice is even. I'm not sure what it was. We stand in the rain for another long moment and I am doing calculations that have nothing to do with exits or distances. I am calculating how much truth costs in this specific conversation with this specific person and what the exchange rate is and whether I can afford it. I cannot afford it yet. You said you would not force me to explain myself. I say. I said that. You meant it. He turns to look at me fully and his gaze is the kind that does not look at a face for what it shows so much as for what it is working to contain. I meant it, he says. I nod once. That is all I give him. He accepts it like it is more than enough. We are almost back inside when the gate alarm sounds. 1 bell, pause, 2 bells, which is the messenger code, arrival under distress. Arden appears from the inner corridor at a pace that is almost running but carries itself as something more controlled. He looks at Sterling first, then at me, brief and unreadable. Messenger from the south border settlement, he says, arrived on foot. His horse didn't make it. Sterling's expression changes in a way I have not seen before. Something cold moves through it like water under ice, controlled and deep and very fast. Injuries, Sterling says. Burns on both hands. He says he was the only one who left before the soldiers arrived. The word soldiers lands in the courtyard air and the rain seems louder for a moment. I keep my face neutral. Keep my hands loose. Inside, behind every managed expression and every deliberate breath, something is pulling itself into focus with the quiet precision of a blade being lifted off a table. 11 days from the date on the Western coin. That was yesterday. Chapter 5. Nox Ransom arrives at midday with 40 wolves and a smile designed for an audience. He rides through the Mornvale gate like the gate was always his, like the distance between a Western throne and this courtyard is a formality he agreed to observe out of generosity rather than law. His horse is too large for practical travel and chosen for exactly that reason. His cloak is deep crimson with border wolf gold at the edges. His crown is wider than Sterling's. Everything about him has been calibrated to say, I take up more space than you have been given. I watch from the upper gallery with my hands wrapped around the stone balustrade and my weight settled evenly on both feet. Nox's scent reaches the gallery before he passes beneath it. Cedarwood and cold iron and something sharp underneath both. Like the smell of a fire that has not started yet. Every Omega in the gallery takes a small, involuntary step back when it hits. I do not step back. But I feel the instinct move through me and I note it and I file it away the same way I file everything Nox Ransom does. He is projecting. The sense surge is deliberate. He is chemically announcing authority to every person with Omega biology in this building before he has said a single word. My mother called this the opening move of men who are afraid they won't be believed. I hold the balustrade and breathe through it and watch him dismount. The formal reception is in the Great Hall. I take my assigned position at Sterling's right side, which is where I have sat at every public function since the ceremony. I am aware of the court watching to see if I will be repositioned. I am aware of Hollis Vane near the back left column watching with a particular attention that has an agenda inside it. I am aware of Arden Flint 2 steps behind Sterling's left shoulder, his expression professionally empty in the way that means he is working very hard. Knox enters the Great Hall and his eyes find me before they find Sterling. That is also deliberate. He crosses the room with his delegation fan behind him and he stops at the appropriate formal distance and he performs the required greeting to Sterling with the technical precision of someone who knows the words but assigns them no weight. Then he turns his full attention to me. "This is the consort," he says. "Not a question. A categorization." "Briar Whitlock," Sterling says. His voice carries no elevation. It does not need to. Knox looks at me the way someone looks at a piece of furniture they have been told is expensive and cannot understand why. He does it slowly and completely and publicly, and the court around us makes no sound. "No declared house," Knox says. "No," I say. "Rejected record." "Yes. And Sterling Hawthorne chose this." He says Sterling's name like a borrowed object. He says this like a word that means mistake. The court is very quiet. I smile. Soft, slightly uncertain at the edges. I let my chin drop just enough to read as uncomfortable without reading as defeated. I have practiced this expression so many times over so many years that it costs me nothing. Knox turns back to Sterling with the air of a man who has just demonstrated a point. "The western settlements along your southern border," Knox says. "The families there live under your protection." "They do," Sterling says. "I want them." The room temperature drops 3 degrees. Sterling's voice does not change. "They are not available." Everything is available when the right law applies. Knox reaches into his cloak and produces a folded document, and the way he has been waiting to produce it is visible in every movement. The Old Accord, Article 12. Any Alpha King may challenge the chosen consort of a rival Alpha King if the consort status is disputed. Rejection records qualify as disputed status. If the consort refuses the challenge, the Alpha King's claim over disputed territories weakens by treaty law. He pauses. If the Alpha King fights in the consort's place, the consort is declared unfit and the Alpha forfeits border authority. He folds the document with the care of a person who knows they will not need it again. "I challenge Briar Whitlock to a royal duel," Knox says. "Under the Old Accord. In front of these witnesses." The silence that follows has a physical weight. I feel Sterling's presence shift at my right side. Not movement. Something underneath movement. His scent changes the way it changes when something matters too much to be contained cleanly. "Briar is not," he starts. "The law does not require your consent," Knox says pleasantly. "Only his." Every person in the Great Hall looks at me. Knox looks at me last. And in his eyes, underneath the performance of a man who has won before he started, there is something that tells me everything my mother's lessons ever prepared me for. He is not here for me. He was never here for me. I am the lock. Sterling is the door. And Knox Ransom has spent months building a key from old law and border coins and one well-placed traitor in a council room, all to open one thing. The border villages. 34 families. Sterling's voice drops low, meant only for me, below the hearing of the watching court. "Briar. Just my name. The weight of everything he cannot legally say inside it." I look at Knox Ransom standing in the center of the Great Hall with his crimson cloak and his borrowed law and his wolves fanned out behind him like a sentence he has already written. Then I look at Sterling. His jaw is tight. His eyes are asking something the law will not let him ask out loud. I already know my answer. I turn back to the hall and I open my mouth and Elder Hollis Vane, standing near the back left column, lifts 2 fingers to the man beside him in a motion so small and so fast that almost no one would see it. My mother showed me that signal once. She told me what it meant. It means the trap is already closed. Chapter 6. It means the trap is already closed. I hold that knowledge inside my chest and I do not let it change my face. Hollis Vane's fingers drop back to his side like nothing happened. The man beside him nods once, almost imperceptibly, and neither of them looks at Knox Ransom directly, which is exactly what you do when you have already arranged something and do not want to be seen confirming it. I have seen enough arranged things to recognize the pattern. I look at Knox. I look at the document in his hand. I look at the 40 Western wolves positioned near the hall entrance with the casual arrangement of men who were told where to stand before they arrived. Then I say, clearly, in front of every witness in that room, I accept the challenge. The sound that moves through the court is not a gasp. It is something more complicated. Part disbelief, part hunger, part the specific satisfaction of people who came to watch something break and are now confident they will get it. Sterling goes completely still beside me. Knox smiles. It is the smile of a man collecting something he already owns. The formal response protocols begin. Legal witnesses step forward. The ringmaster is summoned. Dates and conditions are spoken into the record. I stand through all of it with my hands loose at my sides and my breathing even and my mind already somewhere else entirely. That night, long after the hall empties and the Western delegation retreats to their assigned quarters, Sterling comes to my chamber door. He does not knock loudly. 2 knocks, quiet, and then silence. The kind of knock that says I am here and I will leave if you need me to. I open the door. He looks at me the way a person looks at something they are afraid of losing before they have found the right words to say they wanted to keep it. His scent fills my doorway immediately. Amber and pine ash and something underneath that is rawer than both, like the wood of a door stripped of its finish. He says, "You don't have to do this." "I know," I say. "Briar." My name in his mouth sounds different than it does anywhere else. Lower, more careful, like he is aware of how much weight it is carrying. "Let me find another way. Give me 2 days. I will find something in the law that—" "There is nothing in the law," I say. Knox has been building this for months. He did not arrive with a loophole. He arrived with a finished structure. Sterling steps inside my chamber because I step back and let him. I close the door. The lamp on my desk is the only light and it makes the room feel smaller than it is, which is not entirely unwelcome. He stands in the middle of my room and looks at me and I watch him trying to find a way to argue with something he already knows is true. "If you refuse, he takes the villages," I say. "If you fight for me, you forfeit border authority and he takes the villages anyway." He built the law around both exits, Sterling. The only way through is the duel. The only way through is you dying in a ring, he says. The rawness in his voice is not performed. I have heard performed emotion from powerful men my entire life, and this is not it. This is the real sound. The one people make when the stakes become personal enough to bypass dignity. Something in me cracks along a line I did not know was under pressure. I have spent years making sure nothing cracks. I have kept everything sealed and managed and controlled because the moment something opened, the world would find a way to reach inside and use it. My mother taught me that too. She said, "Briar, they will call your openness a weakness and then use it as a door." But Sterling is standing in my room with his composure barely held together and his eyes asking me something his voice cannot shape into words. And I am so tired of keeping the door shut. "I need to tell you something," I say. He waits. I sit down on the edge of my desk because my legs feel less certain than I want them to. I look at my hands, the calluses on my right palm, the faint scar along my left index finger from a training blade when I was 13. "I am not helpless," I say. "I have never been helpless." Silence. My mother was Willow Whitlock. Before she disappeared, she was the greatest royal duelist Mornvale ever produced. She trained me from the time I was 11 years old. Everything she knew, she put into my hands before she was gone. I hid it because I watched what happened to Omegas who became useful in violent ways. They stopped being people. They became instruments. I refused to be an instrument. Sterling has not moved. "The drop during the ceremony," I say. "I chose that." "I know," he says quietly. I look up. "You knew." "I suspected. From the moment you walked into that hall and counted every guard in the room before you reached the center aisle." He says it without accusation, just truth. I did not ask because I meant what I said about not forcing answers. The crack inside me opens another inch. "I am afraid," I say, "and it costs me more than the duel will." Not of Nox. Not of the ring. I am afraid of what I become if this is the thing that makes me visible. I spent my whole life hiding so the world could not turn me into something sharp and pointed. And now the only way to protect people I care about is to become exactly that. Sterling crosses the room. He moves slowly, the way you move toward something that startles easily, and he stops directly in front of me and he raises both hands and cups my face with a care that is almost unbearable. He says nothing for a long moment. He just holds my face and looks at me like I am the first true thing he has seen in years. Then he kisses me. It starts with almost no pressure. His mouth against mine like a question that already knows its answer, tentative and aching and restrained. Then it shifts. The restraint burns away and what replaces it is everything both of us have been holding back since a rainy courtyard and a ceremonial blade and a single quiet question about breakfast. His scent surrounds me completely. I stop managing my response to it. I stop managing anything. I press both hands against his chest and I feel his heartbeat and I give him the part of myself I have been protecting the longest. When he pulls back, his forehead rests against mine and his hands are still holding my face, and we are both breathing harder than either of us will acknowledge. I love you, I say. The words come out before I can contain them and I do not try to take them back. And I hate that it makes me want to survive this. He makes a sound that is not quite a word and pulls me against him and holds me with the careful, desperate force of someone who is very aware of how much time is left. Neither of us speaks for a long time. Then, against my hair, he says, "What if Knox refuses mercy?" I already know the answer. I close my eyes and I say it. Then tomorrow I become the thing my mother spent her whole life trying to save me from. Chapter 7. Morning arrives like a verdict. I dress before the sun fully clears the keep wall, pulling on the white dual clothes that were delivered to my door sometime before the fourth bell. No silk, no court embroidery, white linen, clothes-fitted, clean. The kind of clothing designed for movement rather than impression. I lace the collar and stand in front of my mirror and look at myself for exactly as long as it takes to make sure my face is ready. It is ready. What is underneath it is a different matter. But the face is ready. Arden Flint is waiting in the corridor outside my door. He does not say good morning. He looks at me with the expression of a man whose calculation has finally resolved and the answer surprised him. "You knew," he says. "I know a lot of things," I say. He falls into step beside me without being asked. We walk the corridor toward the great hall and he does not speak again for a full minute, which I respect. Then he says, "I caught you in the garden the night the light was burning in the council anteroom. You did. You were not lost." No. Another silence. Our footsteps are the only sound in the corridor. "I owe you an apology," he says. "I spent 11 days reading you as a liability." "Most people do," I say. "I work hard to make sure of it." He absorbs that. Then he says, "Sterling is fine," I say, because if I let myself think about Sterling standing at the barrier rope this morning, I will not get through the corridor, let alone the ring. The great hall has already filled by the time we arrive. The court is dressed in formal witness colors. Knox's delegation stands in its designated block near the east wall. His wolves arranged with the same rehearsed precision as yesterday. Knox himself stands near the ring entrance in his crimson cloak, speaking to one of his advisors with the casual energy of a man who has already finished the work. Elder Hollis Vane is positioned at the upper rail. He sees me enter and his expression goes careful and closed in the way of someone resetting their public face. I look at him for exactly 2 seconds, long enough to let him know that I see him, long enough to make the knowledge land. Then I look away because he is not the priority right now. He will be a priority later. That is a promise I make quietly to myself as I walk across the hall floor. Knox turns when I am halfway across the room. He does not bother hiding the amusement in his face. He looks at my white dual clothes and my soft scent and my carefully held expression and he decides, in the way men like Knox always decide, that what he sees is complete. "The Omega actually came," he says, loud enough for the room. I stop at the ring entrance. I look at him. I do not look at Sterling, who I can feel at the barrier to my left the way you feel a fire when you are standing close to it in a cold room. "Before we begin," I say, "I am offering you a way out." The hall goes quiet. Knox tilts his head. Is that so? Leave Mornvale. Withdraw the threat against the border villages. Return to your western territory and let the old accord challenge expire on the record as withdrawn. You walk away with your wolves and your crown and your life. The silence holds for a beat. Then Knox laughs. It fills the hall from floor to glass ceiling and has no warmth in it whatsoever. The rejected Omega is offering me mercy, he says to the room. He says it the way someone presents evidence. This is what Sterling Hawthorne has reduced the Mornvale throne to. He turns back to me and the laughter stops and something much colder moves into his face. You have nothing to offer me, Whitlock. You are a gap in a bloodline and a charity title, and the only reason you are standing in this ring is because the law let me use you as a lever. He says the word lever like it is the most honest thing he has said all week. And it is. I know. I say simply. I wanted it on the record that I offered. Knox's expression shifts slightly. Just slightly. Like a man who expected to knock something over and found it bolted to the floor. The ring master steps forward. The formal words are spoken. Sterling's legal representatives confirm the witness count. Knox's advisors confirm the Western delegation's acknowledgement of terms. The ring is sealed. Sterling moves to the barrier. I feel him before I see him, and I keep my eyes forward until the last required moment, when the ringmaster asks the consort to confirm willingness. I turn to Sterling then. He is holding the barrier rope with both hands, white-knuckled, and his face has the particular stillness of a man who is using every resource he has to keep himself from doing something the law would punish. His eyes find mine, and they are asking the same thing they asked last night in my room, the thing that does not have clean words. I let him see my answer. All of it. The fear and the choice and the love and the decision that came out of all three of them combined. The decision that I am not making for a crown or a court or even for mercy's abstract principle, but for 34 families who wake up inside the protection of a man who put a ceremonial blade back in my hands and asked if I had eaten and stood in the rain beside me without asking for anything back. I turn to the ringmaster. I confirm, I say. The duel begins. As I take my first step into the ring, I see it. The signal. The same two-finger motion Hollis Vane made in the Great Hall yesterday, directed at a man in Knox's delegation near the east wall. The man nods and his hand moves to something beneath his cloak. My mother showed me that signal. She told me what it meant the second time it was used. The first time, she said, they just send the message. The second time means the secondary plan is already in motion. There is something else in this room that Knox has not declared. Chapter 8. Knox does not wait for the second bell. He comes at me before the ringmaster has fully lowered his staff, the way a man comes at something he does not respect enough to grant the formality of a proper start. His first strike is wide and heavy, designed for shock rather than precision, and it cuts the air where my left shoulder was half a second before I moved it. The court inhales. I do not make a sound. I step back and right and let his momentum carry past me, and I watch his weight distribution correct itself, and I file every piece of information my body just collected into the part of my mind my mother trained for exactly this. Knox is strong. His reach is long. His left shoulder carries an old injury that tightens his rotation on the backswing by approximately 15 degrees. He favors his right side for powerful strikes and his left for redirects. He breathes out before he commits to a major move, which is a habit he probably does not know he has. I know because my mother taught me to know. He comes again. Faster this time, adjusting for the miss, putting more technique behind it. This strike has training in it. He is not purely a brute. He is a man who has won real fights and knows what winning feels like. But I have been hiding for 15 years. The discipline required to conceal skill that long does not live in the muscles alone. It lives in the mind. It lives in the specific patience of a person who learned early that being underestimated is a strategy, not a defeat. Knox has spent this entire challenge performing. I have spent it reading. I give him for exchanges where I look like I am barely surviving. I deflect late enough to look desperate. I stumble after the third redirect and catch myself on one knee, and I hear the collective sound of the court assuming the outcome they came to see. Knox pulls back with the theatrical restraint of a man giving the audience a moment to absorb his dominance. Arden Flint is at the barrier to Sterling's left. I catch his face for half a second. His expression is completely different from what it was 3 minutes ago. He is very still in the way trained soldiers go still when they are recalibrating everything they thought they understood. Good. Nox comes for the fourth time and I stop performing. I meet his strike cleanly. Not barely, not desperately. I meet it with the full authority of 15 years of my mother's training, and I feel the shock of contact travel up his arm and into his shoulder because I angled the block to land directly on the old injury site. He falters. One step back. One sharp breath. The court goes completely silent. I move before he resets. 3 steps, controlled, and I am past his guard and I press the blunted edge of my ring blade to his left side and I stop. He stares at me. I step back and give him the distance again. I am giving him a second chance to yield. In front of every witness. In front of his own delegation. I am offering him the exit I offered before the duel started. This time written in the language of the ring where everyone can read it. The court is not making a sound. Nox's face moves through something complicated. Then his jaw sets and what comes out of it is fury, clean and hot. The fury of a man who built a trap that an Omega just walked through without breaking a sweat. You think mercy makes you noble? He says quietly enough that only I can hear it. You are going to die being gentle. He attacks with everything he has held back. I stop holding anything back in return. What follows is not a performance. It is a conversation at the speed of trained bodies speaking to each other in the only language available. He pushes. I redirect. He adjusts. I read the adjustment before it arrives. He is powerful and experienced and genuinely dangerous, and I am faster than he expected and more patient than he can afford. And every single exchange confirms the gap between a man who fights to dominate and a woman who fights to end things cleanly. Then the child appears. Near the east wall, a gap opens in the crowd that should not exist, and a border child, a boy, maybe 8 years old, is guided forward to the edge of the ring barrier by the man Hollis signaled. The boy is frightened. His hands are shaking. He is being held upright by a grip on his collar that is doing the holding for him. The room erupts. My attention splits for less than half a second. That half second is what Nox has been waiting for. He is already moving when I look back and his blade catches me across the upper left arm in a diagonal line, and the burn of it arrives a full second after the fact, which is how pain works when the body is still deciding whether to acknowledge the interruption. I do not go down. I reset my stance, arm bleeding, and Nox takes one look at the fact that I am still standing and something shifts in his face. Not respect. Something more dangerous. The specific expression of a man who has decided that the rules of this engagement no longer serve him. He turns. Not toward me. Away from me. Toward the barrier. Toward Sterling. The duel law is specific. Within the ring master holds authority. Outside the ring, while the duel is active, no other law supersedes. Nox has just calculated that if he kills Sterling before the ringmaster can intervene, the throne transfers under succession law, the duel result becomes void, and the border villages fall under a dead alpha's contested territory. He built a second trap inside the first one. Sterling cannot legally enter the ring to defend himself without forfeiting the crown, and Nox is already at the barrier. My arm is bleeding. My feet are already moving. Chapter 9. I reach Nox before he reaches the barrier. Not by much. 2 steps. The margin between enough and too late is 2 steps and 15 years of training and one decision made in a fraction of a second that my mother prepared me for long before I understood what preparing meant. I catch him by the back of his cloak and I pull. The momentum is brutal. Nox is heavier than me by a full third of my body weight and his forward drive is enormous, but I redirect rather than resist, the same principle applied to every exchange in this ring, and his own force becomes the thing that spins him back toward the center. He turns on me with something past fury, past calculation. He has run out of patience for strategy. He swings the blade with his full strength and zero technique, and I slip under it and come up inside his guard in the space that opened when he overextended, and I put my elbow into his injured shoulder with everything I have. He goes down on one knee. The hall is completely silent. Nox kneels in the center of the ring and breathes through his teeth and looks up at me, and his eyes carry the specific expression of a man arriving at the moment where everything he planned is behind him and nothing useful is in front. I stand over him with my blade positioned and my bleeding arm at my side, and I give him the last offer. 3 seconds. I count them deliberately, long enough to be real. He spits at my feet. Then he surges upward and past me toward the barrier and toward Sterling. and in that moment my mother's voice is clearer than anything else in the room. She said it to me on a cold morning when I was 14 and she was teaching me the final form, and I asked her what I would do if I reached the moment where mercy had run out. She said, "Briar, when someone chooses cruelty over every exit you give them and innocent people are behind you, then protection is not violence. It is love with a different shape. I make the choice. The strike is clean and fast and exactly what she taught me." Knox Ransom falls forward and does not get up, and the sound his body makes against the stone ring floor is the sound of a trap closing on the person who built it. The ring master raises his staff. The duel is over. The court does not make a sound for a long time. Then something happens that I did not plan for. It starts in the lower tier, a single person standing, and it moves upward through the assembled court in a slow, uneven wave that is nothing like celebration and everything like reckoning. They stand not because they are cheering an Omega who won. They stand because they are ashamed that it took this to make them look. Sterling is through the barrier before the ring master finishes the closing words. He crosses the ring floor and he stops in front of me and he goes down on one knee, and it is not theater. It is not political framing. It is a man who was wrong about what protection meant and has just watched the cost of that misunderstanding written in a dead king and a bleeding arm and a court standing in silence that should have come years earlier. He says, "I thought I was protecting you, but you were protecting the part of yourself this world wanted to ruin." I look at him kneeling in front of me in the center of the ring, and the feeling that moves through my chest is too large to have a single name. Arden Flint is already moving through the crowd near the east wall, and I watch him reach the man who held the child and close a hand around his arm with the grip of someone who has been looking for a legal reason and is glad to finally have one. The child is passed to a court attendant. He is frightened but unhurt. Hollis Vane begins moving toward the back of the hall. He does not make it. Two of Sterling's guards are there before him because Arden gave the order with a hand signal from across the room the moment Knox revealed the secondary plan, because Arden had been watching Hollis since the coin appeared under the council table, because some preparation happens before the crisis and some happens during it, and Arden is very good at both. Hollis stops walking. His hands come up slowly. Sterling rises from his knee and takes my injured arm with both hands, carefully, wrapping his fingers around my wrist below the wound in a way that applies pressure without pulling. His jaw is tight. His eyes are doing the thing they do when he is processing emotion through the filter of everything he is responsible for. "Arden has Hollis," I say. "I know," he says. "The boy is safe." "I know that too." He is still holding my arm. His thumb moves once against the inside of my wrist, small and deliberate, and the warmth of it moves through me despite the pain and the aftermath and the exhaustion of every muscle in my body. I look past his shoulder toward the far edge of the crowd. There is a woman standing at the upper gallery rail in a gray hood that she has pulled forward enough to shadow her face. She is very still, in the particular stillness of someone who trained themselves not to be seen in crowds. Her hands rest on the rail, and they are exactly the same shape as mine. The same structure at the knuckles. The same way of carrying stillness in the fingers, like something stored rather than natural. She raises two fingers to her heart. The old duelist salute. My throat closes. She is real. She is alive. She is here. Sterling feels the change in my body before I find words for it, and he turns to follow my line of sight. The woman at the rail lowers her hand and steps back into the crowd, and she is gone. Sterling turns back to me. "Briar." "She was here," I say. My voice does not come out the way I intend it to. "My mother was here." I push through the crowd before he can respond, and I am running by the time I reach the gallery stairs. Chapter 10. The gallery is empty when I reach it. I stand at the rail where she stood, and I press both hands against the stone, and I breathe, and I look at the crowd below, which is still moving and rearranging in the aftermath of everything. And I search every hooded shape and every gray fabric and every still figure, and I do not find her. She is gone. But she was here. I know what I saw. I know my mother's hands, and I know that salute, and I know the specific way she carries stillness in her body like a held breath, because she taught me to carry it the same way, and I have been living inside that teaching my entire life. She was here. She watched. She saw every moment of it. I stand at the rail for a long time. Then I look down, and there is something on the stone beneath my right hand. Small. Tied with a piece of faded blue ribbon that I recognize before I understand why I recognize it. The fraying at the left edge. The double knot that was never fully tightened because I tied it myself when I was 6 years old and did not yet know how. It is my childhood ribbon. The one I thought I lost the day she disappeared. Tied around the grip of a short silver blade. My hands are shaking when I pick it up. The blade is old. Mornvale make. The kind that was issued to royal duelists before the program was formally disbanded 22 years ago. The grip has a seam along the bottom, barely visible, the kind of seam that only exists when something has been built to open. I press the base and it clicks and the grip separates along that seam, and inside, wrapped in a single piece of folded cloth, is a note. The handwriting is hers. I would know it in the dark. She is alive. But she did not come to save you. She came to warn you. The law that almost killed you was only the first chain. I read it twice, 3 times. Below that, in smaller writing, a second line. Knox was not the architect. Knox was the instrument. Find the name on the back of the coin. I reach into my pocket. The Western coin is still there. I have carried it since the morning I found it under the council table. I turn it over and I look at the mint mark on the back face, the one I read as a date, 11 days, which was correct. But beneath the date stamp, pressed into the metal in characters so small they require close focus and specific knowledge of old Mornvale press markings to read, is a name. It is not Knox Ransom's name. It is not Hollis Vane's name. It is a name I know. A name that belongs to someone currently inside this keep. Someone who sat in the gallery during the duel and stood when the rest of the court stood, and whose political position would have made Knox's victory enormously profitable in ways that had nothing to do with border villages. Someone Sterling trusts. I close my hand around the coin. Downstairs, Hollis Vane is in custody and Knox Ransom is dead, and the border villages are safe, and the court is beginning the slow, complicated process of understanding what just happened in their great hall. Sterling's healers are waiting for me. Sterling himself is waiting for me somewhere between the ring and the gallery stairs. And I know he is, the same way I know his scent in a crowded room and his breathing in the dark and the exact weight of his hands when they are trying to be gentle enough not to frighten me. I chose to stop hiding from him. I choose it again, right now, standing at this gallery rail with a coin in one hand and my mother's blade in the other, and a truth so large it changes the shape of everything I thought the story was about. I take the stairs down. Sterling meets me at the bottom. He takes one look at my face and does not ask immediately, which is one of the 1,000 ways he has learned to love me correctly in the span of 3 weeks. He waits. The border villages are safe, I say. Yes, he says. Hollis will stand trial. Public. With full witness record. Arden is already building the case. Good. I look at him. Knox was not the one who built the trap. Sterling's expression changes. I open my hand and show him the coin. I show him the name pressed into the mint mark. I watch his face move through shock and then a grief that is almost physical, because the name belongs to someone he has known for 15 years, someone he brought into his inner council on the basis of a friendship that was apparently very carefully constructed. He is quiet for a long time. Then he says, "How long have you known?" "For minutes," I say. "My mother left me the blade." He looks at me, then at the coin, then back at me with an expression that holds more things than faces usually carry at one time. "She is alive," he says. Not a question. She is alive, and she is somewhere in this city, and she is warning us that the royal dual law is one piece of something larger. A system designed to find powerful omegas and destroy them through legal mechanism before they can become a problem for the people who profit from omega powerlessness. The hallway around us is empty. The noise of the court is distant through the stone walls. His scent surrounds me, amber and pine ash and the storm warmth that I have stopped trying to manage my response to because there is no longer a reason to manage it. He reaches up and puts his hand against my face the way he did the night before the duel, and I lean into it because I have earned the right to lean into something. "We will find her," he says. "We will find all of them," I say. He pulls me against him and I press my face into his neck and I let myself be held with the full weight of who I actually am, not the version I performed for 15 years, not the dropped blade and the soft expression and the careful forgettability, but this version. The one who loves him. The one who buried her mother's lessons in her hands and carried them through every room that tried to make her nothing. The one who is only just beginning. The lesson my mother gave me when I was 11 years old and she pressed a blade into my hands for the first time was not about fighting. It was about this. She said, "Briar, The world will spend your whole life trying to convince you that gentleness and strength cannot live in the same body. Do not believe it. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who is kind enough to offer mercy and strong enough to protect the people mercy cannot reach. I believed her then. I believe her more now. Knox Ransom is dead. Hollis Vane is in custody. 34 families will wake up tomorrow inside a protection that held. And somewhere in this city, my mother is alive and moving and leaving messages inside blade grips for the daughter she trusted to find them. The name on the coin is in my hand. The next chain is waiting to be broken. And the person who built it does not yet know that I am no longer hiding. If this story moved something in you, if Briar's choice to stay gentle in a world that demanded otherwise made you feel something real, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the next story coming to this channel is unlike anything we have told before, and you do not want to arrive after it has already started. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what Briar's journey meant to you. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today.